Hi, this is a quick sort of flyby video of basic tags in HTML. So this video is going to be about the green section down here, and then you'll see two more videos about the part that's in gray right now, number 2 and number 3. So let's just put a little context in this. I'm using the word tags, and I'm going to say the word tags a lot in the next 3 videos, and you're going to start saying it in your sleep probably too. If we look at a web page like this is a Wikipedia web page. I want to ask you, what do you see on this web page? What are the elements that compose this web page? There's a picture over here on the upper left side. There's a list of links down here. There's some sort of like title text. I see a horizontal line right here. There's some more text that's kind of indented in italics. There's a paragraph right here, right? And some bold text and some more links. And there's a search box up at the top, a place where I can type, right? Like this is the only place on the page I can type that I can see right now. So each of these you can consider an element of the page, and all of these elements are represented in code as tags. And that's what we're going to look at right now, is how do we create elements on a web page, and we're going to use tags to do that. So I've got my Replit browser up over here, and let's just start at the top. I noticed there was a phrase that said Pizza Farm at the top. That was kind of the title of the page. So when I run this on the left-hand side here, by the way, let me just give a little orientation, sorry. The left-hand side here is my HTML, and then what I'm seeing on the right-hand side here when I run this is an actual web page that's being run like at an actual link here. You could take that link and give it to your grandmother, and she could watch you do live coding right now or see the results of your live coding right now. So anyway, so that's what we're working with here. Coding on the left-hand side, the web page output on the right-hand side. So Pizza Farm, that was there on our Pizza Farm page. And I'm looking at this top part right here. It's like a title at the top. And in HTML, we have a tag for that. It's called a heading tag. So this is a heading. And here's how I would write this in HTML. There we go. So, and then I can run it, and it turns my Pizza Farm text into like a larger title-y type of text. And you notice what I did there is I just took this Pizza Farm and I wrapped it in, or I enclosed it in 2 tags. There's the H1 tag at the beginning, and then at the end, there's this, here we go. At the end, there's this H1 with a little / at the front of it. And notice the structure of the tags here. A tag starts with angled braces pointing in, ends with angled braces pointing out. And the thing that I put in between those angled braces is the type of tag. It tells me what this content is, what function it serves on the page, or describes what that text means. So H1 gives us a title. There's another tag called P, which is short for paragraph, and that's what I use to write paragraph text. So when we come back here, I see a Pizza Farm is an educational visitor attraction. I'm going to just write my own text here and say something like, I'd like to visit a Pizza Farm. And because I'm going to follow the same style as in the H1 tag and make this a closing tag to say that I'm at the end of my paragraph. So here's my kind of short paragraph. I'd like to visit a Pizza Farm. And I'm telling the browser that this is a paragraph by putting it in between or enclosing it in these P tags, which indicate that it's a paragraph. So opening tag has those angled braces with a P, and the closing tag has angled braces with a P, but this / indicating that it's a closing tag. Let's write another paragraph here. I'd like to visit a pizza farm, but I'm not sure I can afford it because I hear they're pricey. And close that. And now let's run it, and we'll see what this looks like with 2 paragraphs. Here we go. So we have our heading text. We have 2 paragraphs. We can also emphasize some text in here. And emphasis in HTML is represented with an EM tag. So I'm going to emphasize I'd like to visit a pizza farm, because it's all about me. And I can use an EM tag around the I'd part to indicate that is being emphasized. Now, how do you think HTML will represent emphasis visually on the screen? What's going to change when I run this code now to create this web page? Let's see. And I run, and I'd is now in italics. So it's emphasized. That's how HTML represents emphasis. Sometimes this is kind of an old way of doing it, is just with an I tag, has the same effect, indicating that it's italics. It's considered better practice now to use the M tag for emphasis, EM tag for emphasis. So that's what I'll do. And let's say I could also indicate that some text on here is really important. And so I will say, but I'm not sure, and then I'll put this part, I'm not sure I can afford it. And we're going to put that inside a strong tag. So how do you think HTML might represent a strong tag or strong language? Let's push the run button and see. It bolds it, right? So it takes the words that I put between the starting and ending tags, sometimes called opening and closing tags. You can use those terms interchangeably. I put this content, I can afford it, inside strong tags. And that had the effect of bolding it. And again, old school would be to just say B. And that has the same effect. I would encourage you to stick with the newer conventions and say strong, even though it's more writing. HTML has evolved over time, and we can get into why we go for strong and M rather than the shorter B and I to represent these things. Okay, so there are 2 tags that you can use to give some formatting to the text on your page. And you've also seen a header tag. Now we can, if we notice on the Pizza Farm page here, there's examples of pizza farms and references. Those are they're not quite as big as the Pizza Farm heading here, but they're still heading text, but it's sort of less important. And so we represent that with this heading tag and but giving it a different number. So H2 is sort of secondary importance on here. And so I can click run and I get another header here, but it's a little bit smaller, representing that it's slightly less important. And then we have the references, and that's going to also be a H2. There we go, and I can run that, and you can see that there. One common mistake that people make is beginners in HTML make is they think this 1 and this 2 should be then followed by a 3. So you do it like an H3 and your next one's an H4. Don't do that. That number is not meant to be like a sequential number down the page. That's an indicator of the importance of the particular type of heading. Now, I can run that and you can see that a 3 makes it even less important. You could go all the way down to H4, H5. You could go down to H6 is the smallest important heading, and I'll let you run that so you can see what that looks like. So the last thing I would like to show you is how to create a link on your page. And a link is represented with an A tag. Examples, let's just be kind of brief about this, and we can say, go look it up at Google. And I'm going to change this up a little bit. Instead of an A, we'll make it a paragraph, look it up at Google, and All right, let's just run this. There's no link yet, right? But now let's make Google a link that actually takes you to a Google search engine. So we do that by wrapping it, again, in tags, just like we did in Strong and M. And the tag for a link is A. So we have an A tag at the beginning and an A tag at the end. And now when I run it, I don't see what I'm looking for, right? That should be blue and clickable, but it's not. So what's missing here? I hope you're thinking about the fact that I didn't say where this should go. This is still just a word on the page, Google, and I'm not telling the browser what I would like to link to, right? So what I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna widen this out just so that we don't get a line wrap here. I'm gonna put inside this tag, see where I'm typing right here. So inside this opening tag is where I'm gonna say what this word should link to. So I'm gonna use href for that, href. And then I'll put quotes, and then inside the quotes, my habit is to do open quote, close quote, and then backspace once to get into the quotes, and then put in a link like that. Now, I can bring that back and see how it does a little bit of funky line wrap there. I spread it out so we could see it as all one unit. But now we want to see the page, and now when I run it, in fact, it's actually blue underlined and a link. And if I click on that, it will open up the Google web page. Okay, on Replit right now, it's not going to open it up because we're in this sort of funky little browser thing. But it works when you launch it somewhere else. Okay, so one thing to notice here is I put in like a blank line here, and that didn't show up with like a lot of blank line there, and I can put a lot of blank lines in here, and still there's not a lot of blank lines over there. I could also, sort of space this out weirdly, and it has no effect on the page. In fact, let's just say like between the words pizza farm up here, I could put a lot of spaces, and I run it, still no effect. What's going on there? I wanted to point this out at the beginning of our videos here because this is an indicator of one behavior in HTML that is a little counterintuitive at first, but once you start working with HTML, you'll start to see why it is this way intentionally. Anytime there's a space, like a bunch of spaces like that, or a bunch of empty lines, your browser will read it or render it, which means render means make it appear as if. It will render it as one space, a single space. And oftentimes when we want to put a lot of content on a web page, we indent it in, just like this line 11 is. And so it's useful to be able to put a lot of spaces it's useful to be able to put a lot of spaces to the left of a word here. And so that's why the browser will only render it as a single space so that you can do lots of indenting and not mess up the way your page looks. If you want to actually have the indenting appear on your page, there's a tag for that. And I'll let you look that up if you want to look into that. Okay, so spaces and line breaks are for humans to help you read the web page here. This is obviously pretty messy, but I might go something like this. Maybe I'll put spaces around my paragraphs, and I don't like this indentation, right? So this is only for my human reading of this HTML file. The browser ignores all those extra spaces and line breaks. Okay, so there are a couple other things. That's text tags on our list of things we're going to cover here. The next thing I want to look at is self-closing tags. And that is how we're going to draw this horizontal line under Pizza Farm here. So if you, I'm going to write HR. And if I were to put a closing tag after the HR, what should I put between them? HR is short for horizontal rule, meaning like a rule, like a ruler. But what's the content of my ruler here? It's kind of a line, but HR already implies the line. And so this is a special type of tag we call a self-closing tag. And we represent it with just putting that / at the end of the tag like that. And we have no corresponding closing tag. So it's just one tag. And when I run it, that puts that horizontal rule underneath my Pizza Farm text here. And we don't need a closing tag because there is no real content that we need to put between the tags. It's just one thing we want to put on our page. So there are a few self-closing tags. Most tags that we use are not self-closing, meaning there's an opening and a corresponding closing tag. So HR, horizontal rule, is one of our self-closing tags. Another one is BR, which stands for break, and it's used to make a line break. So remember all those enters or blank lines I put above examples here before, and they didn't show up on the HTML page? I can say BR, which is a line break, and that will actually serve as line breaks in there. That's another self-closing tag so you only write the tag once. You don't have opening and corresponding closing tags. And notice how I wrote this here. This one is BR without a / at the end there. My HR, I have a / at the end. Again, this is more of a style issue. HTML, newer HTML prefers that you write it like this with a / inside the tag. But either way, it actually works fine without that / in there. So you may see it written either way. It just means the same thing. And this approach is a newer way of, sort of a newer style of doing it. The last self-closing tag that I'd like to show you is how we get this Wikipedia cool picture logo on there. And that's with an image tag. And let's put an image after Google here. No, actually, let's put it above examples in this little blank space that we have here. So an image tag is represented. It's a self-closing tag, which maybe sounds a little counterintuitive with the reason that not consistent with the reason that I gave before, but we won't get into the details of this. A lot of this is just legacy stuff. Like the first people who did this 30 years ago did it one way, and we're kind of stuck with it now, right? So image needs one attribute, like one thing we're going to put inside the tag itself, which is src equals, and src means source. So this is where we put the URL, or like the web address of the image that we want to display here. And so I'm going to come over here to Pizza Farm, right click on that, and I can get, no, that's going to open up a new link. Let's do that. Actually, let's get one of these little dudes here. No. All right, sorry. Should have open link in new tab. Should have gotten my oh, these are all logos. I should have pulled my image out ahead of time. Okay, let's go into the MediaWiki website. We can get this beautiful little daisy, and what I'm going to do here is no, you know what we can do. Sorry to take so long here. I can go here, and I can get some more details on this image. And what you're looking for is, we'll get a small version of this image. And so here's the image, and I'm going to copy the link to this image from up at the top and put that right in here. And now when I run it, that image appears on my page. So I feel like that I did that a little too quickly. Maybe that was a little too magical with the image source there. And we'll spend time later on going over how to get those links. Obviously, I wasn't super prepared for that part of this, but I just wanted to show you that you can put an image on a page with an IMG link and the source attribute, and that's another example of a self-closing tag. So all of this, I've used the word element a couple times. Each set of tags represents an HTML element. And so I'd like to close this video by just defining HTML element. And so let's take a picture of what we're looking at here, and we'll do just a little bit of editing on it. Let's go down to this href tag here. So, whoops. So I've sort of zeroed in on the link that we have here, this A tag. And I just want to throw out a couple definitions now. So I've used this phrase a lot already. This whole thing is our starting tag, aka opening tag. And then correspondingly down here at the end, we have our ending tag, aka closing tag. And then in between these tags here is the part that's enclosed by the tags. That's our content. And then inside this first tag, we actually have this href equals part. That's called an attribute of the tag. Looking at the top of my head here a lot, right? Oh, maybe you don't see that anymore. Okay. Anyway, there's an attribute of the tag. And an attribute is made up of, here we go, just zoom in a little bit more here. An attribute name, and an attribute value. So these are terms that you should get comfortable using. We have one tag. Here, let me do a little bit of highlighting here. We've got our tag there, and then inside that tag, we have our one attribute, which is the href equals. And that attribute is composed of a name value pair. And there may be other attributes that we want to add to a tag depending on what the tag is. Now, all of these things together are what we call an HTML element. And we've seen we've seen examples of other HTML elements on here. So for example, what I have highlighted here, right? This pizza farm is an HTML element. Can you identify the opening tag of this? Yeah, it's this H1. Can you identify the closing tag? Right, it's down at the end here. Can you identify the content? Yes, it's pizza farm. Can you identify the attributes of the tag? There are no attributes on this one, right? If there were, we would put them right in here. And an H1 tag, some common attributes you might see are like ID. Sometimes we want to give it a name so that we can do things with it later on, or style tags, that sort of thing. But for now, we're doing no attributes in our H1 tag there. Okay, so that's it for this video. We went over, if we again put you down to here, we went over basic tags on this video. We looked at text tags, we looked at self-closing tags, and then we defined an HTML element.